The SEAL recruitment office buzzed with thick file candidates, everyone clutching impressive resumes. Elena Voss, 29, stood silent with papers stamped bright red refused. A group of male applicants snickered nearby. "A woman like you wanting SEAL training?" one said. Another added, "Better stick to carnival shooting games." Elena said nothing, just folded her rejection letter quietly. From her worn canvas bag hung a black cloth strip. No one knew it was the mark of someone who trained to shoot in complete darkness for years. Freeze moment. Comment honor if you believe true skill can't be denied. Asterisk. Deep in the Appalachian Mountains, Elena grew up in a family of hunters. Her childhood wasn't playgrounds and dolls. It was rifle ranges and forest tracks. Her father taught her young, if you want to survive out here, you listen with your ears, not just look with your eyes. Every morning before school, they'd walk the mountain trails. Elena learned to identify animals by their footsteps. She could tell wind direction by the sound it made through different trees. Most importantly, she learned that true marksmanship wasn't about perfect vision, it was about perfect focus. When Elena turned 16, her father died in a hunting accident, a stray bullet in thick fog. The irony wasn't lost on her. The man who taught her to shoot blind was killed because someone else couldn't see clearly. That night, Elena made a promise over his grave. She would master shooting without sight. If her father died because someone relied too heavily on their eyes, she would prove that true skill came from within. Starting at 15, Elena tied a black cloth around her eyes every single day. She learned to shoot by sound, the rustle of leaves, the whisper of wind across metal, the space between her own heartbeats. Hour after hour in those mountain forests, her neighbors thought she lost her mind. Grief had made her crazy, they said, but Elena knew better. She was becoming something no one expected. Why SEAL training? Elena didn't want glory. She didn't want to prove women could be warriors. She wanted to prove that real skill could save lives. That technique mattered more than muscle mass. That precision beat brute force every single time. The SEAL program represented the ultimate test. If she could make it there, her father's lessons would mean something. Getting rejected meant her years of blindfold training were just elaborate self-torture, all those hours in darkness wasted. But even if she somehow got accepted, she'd face worse than rejection. She'd face the constant whisper that she got lucky, that it was all a fluke. Elena understood the game. In their world, women had to be twice as good to get half the credit. She was ready to be 10 times better. As Act 1 closes, Elena watches her application get tossed into a rejection pile. The male candidates keep laughing, their voices echoing off the recruitment office walls. But Elena isn't looking at their faces anymore. She's listening to their heartbeats, measuring their breathing patterns, learning their weaknesses. The black cloth stripped dangles from her bag, waiting. Staff Sergeant Reinhardt, the recruitment coordinator, noticed the commotion. He walked over with that swagger that screamed career military, the kind of man who'd never met a rule he wouldn't enforce. "What's all the noise about?" he barked. One of the male candidates pointed at Elena. "Sir, this lady thinks she can make it through SEAL training." Reinhardt looked Elena up and down. She stood 5'6", maybe 130 pounds, soaking wet, no visible muscle definition, just calm brown eyes and steady breathing. "Ma'am," Reinhardt said with theatrical politeness, "I appreciate your patriotism, but we don't run a circus for the blind here." The crowd erupted in laughter. Someone in the back shouted, "Maybe try the Coast Guard." Another voice, "I hear the Navy needs cooks." Elena felt every eye in that room burning into her. Phones came out, people started recording, probably planning to post this on social media later. Woman gets destroyed at SEAL recruitment office. She'd become their entertainment. Elena reached into her canvas bag. Her fingers found the black cloth strip, the same fabric her father had used to teach her about shooting in mountain fog. Slowly, deliberately, she pulled it out. "What's that supposed to be?" Reinhardt asked. "A magic trick?" Elena began wrapping the cloth around her eyes. The room got quieter. Even the laughing died down to confused murmurs. "If I can hit a target while blindfolded," Elena said clearly, "will you at least look at my application again?" Reinhardt threw his head back and laughed, a genuine belly laugh that echoed off the walls. "Lady, if you can hit even one target blindfolded, I'll personally buy you dinner and apologize for wasting your time." More laughter. Someone shouted, Make it interesting. If she misses, she pays for everyone's lunch. Elena finished tying the blindfold. The world went black, but somehow everything became clearer. She could hear Reinhardt's breathing pattern, slightly elevated heart rate. He was enjoying this too much. She could hear the air conditioning cycling on, a door creaking somewhere down the hallway, the nervous shuffling of feet on linoleum. Most importantly, she could hear the silence that lived between all those sounds. Reinhardt led the group to the indoor range. 15 paper targets hung at various distances, standard bullseye patterns, nothing fancy. Pick your weapon, Reinhardt said, gesturing to a rack of military-issue pistols. Elena selected a standard Beretta M9. She checked the weight, the balance, loaded a fresh magazine with practiced efficiency. The crowd pressed closer. Someone whispered, "This is about to be epic." Elena took her position. The blindfold felt familiar, like coming home. She'd done this thousands of times in the Appalachian woods. "Whenever you're ready, ma'am," Reinhardt called out, his voice carrying that smug confidence of someone about to witness a spectacular failure. Elena raised the weapon. The room went completely silent. She listened for her heartbeat, found the space between beats. In that microscopic moment of perfect stillness, she squeezed the trigger. Bang. Asterisk. The sound echoed through the range like thunder. Bullseye came a shocked voice from behind the spotting scope. Someone laughed nervously. Lucky shot. Elena didn't acknowledge the hit. She was already preparing for the second target. Listen, breathe, find the silence. Bang. Asterisk bullseye. The nervous laughter stopped. Bang. Asterisk bullseye. The room grew uncomfortable. People shifted their weight. Bang. Asterisk dead center bull's eye. Someone whispered, "What the hell?" Bang. Asterisk. Perfect bull's eye. Reinhardt's smug expression began to crack. No one was laughing anymore. The recording phones were steady now, capturing something nobody expected. Bang, 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 bang. Asterisk bullseye, 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 bullseye. The spotter's voice had gone from shocked to mechanical, like he couldn't believe his own words. Elena's breathing never changed. Her stance never shifted. Each shot flowed into the next like a deadly meditation. By shot 11, you could hear a pin drop. Grown military men stood frozen, watching something that shouldn't be possible. Bang. Asterisk bullseye. Bang. Asterisk bullseye. Bang. Asterisk perfect center bullseye. Bang. Asterisk dead center again. Elena prepared for the final shot. 15 consecutive perfect hits. Not one miss. Not even close. She found that familiar silence between heartbeats, the place her father had taught her to live. Bang. Asterisk. Perfect bullseye. 15 for 15. The spotter set down his scope with shaking hands. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The person recording had lowered their phone, mouth hanging open. Elena calmly unloaded the weapon, set it down, and untied her blindfold. She blinked in the sudden light, looking around at faces that had gone from mocking to stunned to something approaching fear. Reinhardt stood like a statue, his face drained of all color. "How?" was all he managed to whisper. Elena folded her blindfold neatly and put it back in her bag. "My father taught me to listen," she said simply. "You learn a lot when you stop relying on your eyes." Comment CTA. If you were in that room, what would you have done after the first bullseye? Asterisk. The silence stretched for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Then heavy footsteps echoed from the quarter. Commander Wilhelm Brandt entered the shooting range. 28 years of service had carved lines into his face, but his eyes were sharp as ever. He was the kind of officer who commanded respect just by walking into a room. "What's all the commotion?" he asked, scanning the frozen faces. Reinhardt snapped to attention, but his voice cracked slightly. "Sir, we have a situation. This civilian just shot 15 consecutive bullseyes while blindfolded." Brandt looked at Elena for the first time. She stood calmly by the shooting booth, her canvas bag slung over one shoulder, that black cloth strip now folded neatly in her hands. 15 consecutive bull's eyes, Brandt repeated slowly. "Blindfolded?" "Yes, sir." "Show me the targets." They walked downrange together. Brant examined each target personally, his expression unreadable. Every single bullseye was perfect. Not just in the scoring rings, but dead center, the kind of precision that even seasoned snipers struggle to achieve under perfect conditions. "Ma'am," Brant called back to Elena, "who taught you to shoot like this?" Elena's throat tightened. She'd avoided talking about her father for years. Too many memories, too much pain. "My father, sir. He was a marksman, what was his name, Tobias Voss? He trained hunters and some military reservists in the Appalachian region." Brant froze, actually froze mid-step. The name hit him like a physical blow. Tobias Voss. How many years had it been? 15? 20? Afghanistan, 2003. Brant was a young lieutenant then, leading a reconnaissance patrol through hostile territory. They'd been pinned down by enemy fire for 6 hours, no air support, no backup, just the 12th of March irons and rapidly dwindling ammunition. That's when the mountain man appeared. Tobias Voss had been working as a civilian contractor, training local forces, but when he heard about the trap patrol, he volunteered for an impossible rescue mission. "I can get you out," Voss had said, "but you'll have to trust me to shoot in complete darkness." The plan was insane. Voss would create a distraction by taking out enemy positions one by one, using only sound and muzzle flashes to guide his shots. No night vision, no laser sights, just his ears and 20 years of hunting experience. It worked. Voss eliminated 7 enemy combatants in pitch-black conditions, creating the opening Brant needed to extract his team. All the 12th of Marchines made it home because one mountain man could shoot blind. Before they parted ways, Voss had shared his secret. "Listen for the silence between heartbeats, son. That's where perfect shots live." "Listen for the silence between heartbeats," Brant whispered, staring at Elena. Elena's eyes widened. "You knew my father? Your father saved my life and the lives of 11 other Marines in Afghanistan." That phrase, he told me that exact phrase 20 years ago. The shooting range went completely silent again, but this time it wasn't shock, it was reverence. Reinhardt looked between them, confused. "Sir, Staff Sergeant, this woman isn't some carnival trick. She's carrying on a legacy that saved American lives. Tobias Voss was one of the finest marksmen I've ever encountered." Elena felt her knees go weak. "He never told me about Afghanistan." "He wouldn't have. Your father was humble like that. But what he did over there," Brant shook his head. "It was the kind of shooting that becomes legend." Brant turned to address the crowd that had gathered. Every person in that recruitment office was now pressed into the shooting range, watching this impossible scene unfold. "You want to see if this was luck?" Brant announced. "Let's find out." He ordered Reinhardt to set up a more challenging test. Moving targets, variable distances, artificial wind from industrial fans, the kind of conditions that would challenge even their best instructors. "Ma'am," Brant said to Elena, "would you be willing to demonstrate your abilities under combat conditions?" Elena nodded. She retied her blindfold, but this time her hands weren't steady. The weight of her father's reputation pressed down on her shoulders. What if she failed? What if the first test really was just luck? The new setup was brutal. Targets swayed on cables, fans created crosswinds that would throw off even experienced shooters. The distances varied from 15 to 50 yards. Elena took her position. The crowd pressed closer, but respectfully, this time this wasn't entertainment anymore. This was witnessing something historic. She raised the weapon and listened. The fans created a constant hum, but underneath that noise, she could hear the subtle differences. The way air moved around swaying targets, the micro sounds that revealed timing and position. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "The mountain doesn't change its voice for anyone. You just have to learn its language." Bang. Asterisk. Moving target, direct hit. Bang. Asterisk. Swinging target at 40 yards, perfect center. Bang, bang, bang. Asterisk. 3 rapid shots, 3 moving targets, 3 perfect hits. The crowd was witnessing something that shouldn't exist, shooting that belonged in movies, not reality. When Elena finished the advanced test, another perfect score, the atmosphere had completely transformed. The same men who had mocked her an hour ago now stood with heads bowed. A few approached her directly. "Ma'am, I owe you an apology," said one of the candidates who had laughed loudest. "What I said before, that was out of line." Another added, "I've been shooting competitively for 15 years. What you just did is impossible, but you did it anyway. Even Reinhardt stepped forward. Ma'am, about that dinner, I promised it would be my honor to buy you the finest meal in town and to personally ensure your application gets the review it deserves. Commander Brandt addressed the entire room with the authority of his rank and years of service. Ladies and gentlemen, what you just witnessed isn't just exceptional marksmanship. It's a master class in dedication, discipline, and skill that most of us will never achieve. He turned to Elena. Your application isn't just accepted. You've set a new standard for what we consider elite marksmanship in this program. Brandt paused, looking around the room at faces that had gone from skeptical to awed. Anyone who questions whether this woman belongs in SEAL training needs to remember what they saw here today. This isn't about gender. This isn't about physical strength. This is about a level of skill that can save lives in impossible situations. Elena untied her blindfold for the final time that day. The room looked different now, the same people, but their faces showed something she'd rarely seen directed at her. Genuine respect. Commander, she said quietly, I didn't come here to set records or prove points. I just wanted to honor what my father taught me. You've done more than honor it, Brandt replied. You've elevated it. Tobias Voss would be proud. From rejected applicant to the woman who raised the bar for an entire program, the transformation was complete. 3 months later, the recruitment facility buzzed with a different energy. New recruit oath ceremony day. Families filled the bleachers, cameras flashed, and fresh-faced candidates stood in perfect formation. Elena stood among them, but today was different. Today, Commander Brandt had something special planned. Before we begin the traditional oath, Brandt announced to the packed auditorium, I want to address something that happened in this very building. The crowd quieted. Elena felt her stomach tighten. She hadn't expected this. 3 months ago, a young woman walked into our recruitment office. She was mocked, dismissed, and humiliated by people who should have known better. Brandt paused, letting his words sink in. That woman didn't just prove them wrong. She showed us what real excellence looks like. Commander Brandt reached into his uniform pocket and pulled out Elena's black blindfold, the same strip of cloth that had started everything. He held it high above his head where everyone could see. This piece of fabric represents something we should never forget. It represents the danger of judging someone by what we think we see instead of recognizing the skill we cannot understand. The auditorium was dead silent, every eye focused on that simple black cloth. It reminds us that assumptions can blind us to greatness, that mockery reveals more about our character than the person we're mocking. Elena felt tears threatening. This wasn't what she'd wanted. She'd never asked to be a symbol. I'm going to ask some people to step forward, Brandt continued. One by one, he called out names, the same men who had laughed at Elena 3 months ago, the ones who had made jokes about carnival shooting and Coast Guard cooking. They walked to the front with their heads down, faces flushed with embarrassment. These men have something to say, Brandt announced. The first candidate stepped to the microphone, his voice shaking slightly. Ma'am, Elena, I owe you more than an apology. I owe you respect. What I said that day was wrong, and I'm sorry. The second man followed. I let my assumptions cloud my judgment. You showed courage I didn't have. Thank you for the lesson. One by one, they apologized publicly, not because they were forced to, but because witnessing Elena's skill had genuinely changed them. After the apologies, Brandt unveiled something new, a bronze plaque mounted prominently in the recruitment lobby. 15 Bullseye's Blindfold Legacy, in memory of Tobias Voss and in honor of Elena Voss. True skill shines brightest in darkness. The crowd erupted in applause. Elena stared at the plaque, overwhelmed. But Elena wasn't done. She stepped to the microphone, still not comfortable with the attention. I don't want to be anyone's hero, she said simply. I just want people to remember that we all carry skills others can't see. The only way to honor them is to keep practicing in the dark. A young recruit from the back of the auditorium raised his hand. Ma'am, could you teach us the breathing technique? Elena looked out at eager faces, people genuinely wanting to learn, not mock. First lesson, she said with a small smile. Listen to the wind, then listen to your own heartbeat. The space between them is where real focus lives. The ceremony continued, but something had fundamentally changed in that room. Respect had replaced ridicule, understanding had conquered assumption. And in the lobby, that bronze plaque would remind every future candidate that greatness sometimes comes wrapped in ways you don't expect. 6 months have passed since that day they rejected me. Sometimes I lie awake thinking about those moments in the recruitment office when they stamped refused across my application. I thought maybe they were right, maybe all those years of blindfold training in the mountains was just elaborate self-torture. Maybe I was chasing ghosts of a father who couldn't save himself. When they laughed at me, I didn't feel anger. I felt something worse, doubt. But then I remembered Dad's voice cutting through all that noise. Elena, when the world gets loud, find the quiet place inside. That's where your real strength lives. So I listened for that quiet place, and in the silence between their laughter and my heartbeat, I found what I was looking for. When Commander Brant recognized Dad's phrase, everything changed not just for me, but for everyone in that room. I realized I wasn't shooting alone that day. I was carrying every lesson Dad taught me, every morning we spent in those mountain forests, every time he made me practice when I wanted to quit. Listen for the silence between heartbeats, he used to say. I thought he was teaching me about marksmanship. Now I know he was teaching me about life. Today, I'm sitting in the same recruitment office where they rejected me, but everything looks different now. New candidates walk through these doors every week, some confident, some nervous, all carrying dreams they're afraid to admit. Yesterday, a young woman approached me. She'd heard the story. She asked if I could teach her to shoot blindfolded. I told her what I tell everyone. It's not about the blindfold. It's about learning to trust what you know is true, even when the world tells you it's impossible. Elena walked over to the bronze plaque in the lobby. Her fingers traced the engraved letters, 15 bull's eyes, blindfold legacy. Dad never got to see this moment. Never got to know that his lessons would save not just Commander Brant and those Marines in Afghanistan, but would change how people think about what's possible. The black cloth strip sits in my locker now. I don't need to wear it anymore because I've learned the most important lesson of all. Honor doesn't come when people are watching you succeed. Honor comes when you do the right thing in the darkness, when no one believes in you, when everything seems impossible. Honor comes in those silent moments between heartbeats, when you choose to trust your training over their doubts. Outside the recruitment office, wind whistled through the target range. The sound echoed like a steady heartbeat, rhythmic and sure. Elena smiled and walked toward the training grounds. There were young recruits waiting to learn about the space between heartbeats, and in that space, her father's legacy lived on. Soft CTA. Subscribe if you believe real skill shines, even when eyes are closed. Asterisk.